Today's AskReddit post. In 20 years someone will ask what was COVID lockdown like. How will you answer? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. COVID lit something in me, and I've been gassed up ever since. I started mowing lawns out the trunk of my 03 Accord. Then I learned how to climb and properly remove trees. I have a big old truck and trailer and a ton of equipment now. I was an alcoholic server/bartender before and super depressed. 2 of my teenage kids have moved in with me, and I'm in the best shape of my life. This is great. So happy for you. Thanks, it has been a challenging and strange time, but I'm enjoying it. I'm sorry if that is obscene in these times, but the pleasures are simple, and if there's to be any they should be enjoyed. I feel the greatest sacrilege may be allowing all this misery to break my love for the life I'm living. I made a metric duck ton of money delivering pizzas on empty streets. Every one of my drivers at the time did too. Most of them were moonlighting on third-party apps on top of it because the money was so good. So yeah, I worked a lot. I made a poop ton of $sign disinfecting common areas in apartment complexes. We just slowed back down this winter. I've never worked so much as I did during lockdown. I'm kinda jealous. My sister got to draw double unemployment for over a year while I worked 7 days a week. AHH. The great toilet paper shortage of the 20s is how I'll begin. Man, that was so wild. I remember actually seeing grown adults arguing with cashiers about toilet paper purchasing limits. Like, no sir, you cannot buy 12 packs of toilet paper. Even funnier that it all started because of a news article accidentally thinking most of the Aussie TP comes from China. Surreal mostly. It's almost like a void in my life's timeline. Like it both didn't and did happen. It also felt like it took forever, but yet not long at all, if that makes sense. My mom and I were talking about this literally 10 minutes ago. She was trying to remember 2019 but it only comes in fragments and I feel the same. Then 2020 is just a blur and a half for both of us. The bizarre determinations on who could be considered an essential worker. My son was considered an essential worker. He was a teenager working his first job in fast food. We were considered essential workers while building a luxury hotel for the Minnesota Vikings. They also explicitly stated that if we refused to work due to the virus, we would lose our jobs. The whole time period was a ducking joke. I never put it together that Viking Lakes was built during the pandemic. It's about a block from my work and we always go to the Caribou right next to it. But I guess in my perspective it just kinda showed up one day and I never thought about it. Also an essential worker. Weird. Lots of anxiety, but it was also kinda peaceful. I count myself very lucky that I had a stable job that I could do from home and that I owned a house with a nice outdoor space. It was peaceful for me because I lived with my family. For my friend who lived alone, it was not fun at all since people weren't allowed to visit each other. I'll be surprised if anyone asks when it did strike. My brother, who studied infectious diseases while in college, was astonished he'd never thought to ask our 4 grandparents about the Spanish flu. They were all young adults when it hit. They didn't have the internet or Reddit or 10 million people with phones recording everything during the Spanish flu. Holy poop, could you imagine being locked down without Tiger King to watch? Asterisk, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the cleanest of times. It was the dirtiest of times. It was the quietest of times. It was the loudest of times. It was the funnest of times. It was the boringest of times. Asterisk. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, and what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all, before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I don't feel like going into it. If you want to know the truth, is this Catcher in the Rye? The opening tickles my memory, but I don't fully remember the reference. P. Tom Sawyer? Tom Clancy? Something along those lines. Alcoholism. I really wonder how many people got back on / started taking drugs due to stresses during the pandemic. Strangely, lockdown helped me stay clean. I was a few months sober when it kicked off, and being away from my usual triggers and at home with my kid made it easier not to relapse. Lots of Zoom calls in my underwear. Fruit of the Zoom. No difference for me. Work was somehow considered essential. We make cabinets, drawers, and I think we had maybe 3 to 4 orders for the covered tents during the lockdown. One day of work to be considered essential for the whole lockdown. I'm an introvert/gamer and just bought my house, so didn't really have need to go anywhere. Okay, one difference. Walmart closing at 8 PM meant I couldn't go grocery shopping after work anymore. The stores never switching back to being open late into the night, at least where I am, is truly annoying at this point. Everyone got fat and social media got stupid, and all men grew beards. I've kept my covered beard. Quiet and empty roads. Driving to work during lockdown was really freaking weird. Busiest street/highway in town and I wouldn't see any other cars. Wouldn't know. I worked in the hospital morgue for the whole lockdown. I hope not to catch the incurable blood clotting disease that killed many of my clients for $19/HR. I was called a hero and an essential worker while I couldn't afford to buy a house. Like some weird collective psychosis. Like we collectively all lost our sanity for a while, but with good reason. The backquote 20 lockdown was a weirdly magical time that was quiet and peaceful, but filled with anxiety. The early backquote 21 lockdown was an absolute nightmare of depression and a slowly decreasing grip on reality. I did a lot of walking. 100% this. The lockdown was kind of cool for a while. Tiger King came out. I got really into cooking. Lots of walks with my dog. Then it got scary. Then it got mind-numbingly boring. Then it got super depressing. It is hard to lose a family member and not even be able to have a funeral. Depressed about being locked up. My mom had cancer and I was scared of getting her sick because I was constantly exposed to COVID. This was when we weren't sure of the full effects of anything. Just that it was dangerous. Especially to the people who were older and sick. So I didn't see her and felt horrible about that. Because I wanted to. I just didn't want to be the reason she died or got worse. She didn't really seem to understand that. She just kept saying that wouldn't happen. So it's hard for me to feel okay with my decision. She did beat cancer in a year, and I'm so grateful for that. She doesn't seem to be angry about it, but I hope she understands why. I guess I could have seen her at her window or FaceTimed her or something. But I didn't even think of that then. Though I wish I had. I kept in contact over text and phone. But a FaceTime type thing could have felt more like we were with each other. In beginning for Canada, there was a type of cooperation which was incredible. After a few months, invasive social media crept in and changed everything. People went from communal to factional in the span of a few months. Ducking depressing. I don't want to say that I wasted up to 4 years of my life cause I didn't, but I felt not even real. I think I dissociated the whole thing. 2 words. Tiger King. Honestly, that came out at the absolute perfect time. It came out during that period where everyone thought we'd just have to stay indoors for 2 weeks, so it was the perfect show to binge. Everyone was watching the madness on Tiger King or playing Animal Crossing. I was a student nurse at the time and we were asked to volunteer to support the qualified nurses. It was terrifying and absolute hell. My best friend started wearing masks, carrying hand sanitizers, and telling everyone that when the vaccine becomes available, she is first in line. Right before she could get the vaccine, she got COVID. Ended up in ICU where she was isolated for 6 weeks and no one could visit her at the hospital. Then moved up to another part of the hospital where she died. The last phone call we had, she told me she can't stand the hospital because the food sucks here. She couldn't taste the food. R.I.P. Sully. Everyone loved you and we all miss you. I was an essential worker. It was the year I understood the depth of how little Americans care about each other. I'm an IQ doctor and my view of humanity and society is irrevocably cynical. After going through that, preach. Taking care of the sick and dying was not a good time. But my coworkers just spent all their free time on social media being brainwashed by the far right. Like, think about anti-vax healthcare workers. So hard to isolate my family from the insanity. Now have zero tolerance for bullpoop. Nothing really changed. I still had to go to work, while most people got to stay home and chill. Same here. Although the lack of traffic was nice AF. I have a heavy commute 6 days a week and I remember telling myself to enjoy the moment, because the hell of a commute pre-COVID will come back. It was like all your friends and you being grounded at the same time. I'd tell them about how the mayor of Chicago told people if they left their house they'd be jailed, but then she went and got a haircut. There's so many examples of this. Stay home. Don't mingle. But I'll party it up. UKPM. It was astounding. New hypocrisy every day. Quiet, relaxing, and scary for the first bit, then it was just peaceful. I agree, seeing life slow down for 2 years was nice. I just wish the reason didn't involve much panic, sickness, and death, and asinine political maneuvering, at least in the US. It was hell. I was a retail manager for Walmart. No lockdown. No free unemployment money. No government help. Constantly understaffed, overworked, and exhausted. We were essential, but never got any benefit or recognition. We were physically accosted by people who didn't want to wear masks, but it was a state OSHA audience that they were kicked out. We got no choice but got demanded. We got yelled at for toilet paper and other essentials that were just gone. No suppliers had anything, and customer frustrations were taken out on the retail management. So yeah, it was grand. It was pretty much a test run of how fast we will turn and completely destroy each other if faced with an actual disaster. By all accounts, this is a small change of quality of life. When the next hits, it will be even worse. COVID told me how easy it is to take over America. A time for rebirth and growth. But before that happened, I was drinking 20+ a day and actively ruining my life. 2 years sober now. I'm gonna be real with you, chief. I'll be lucky to make it another 20 years. The happiest 10 months of my life. I got paid to go do outdoor fun stuff like crabbing, fishing, hunting, hiking, picnics, etc. Also the happiest 10 months of my life. Found out I wasn't depressed, I was just burnt the duck out. Strange. It was an extended holiday for many. Meanwhile, a huge chunk of the general population got labeled as essential workers, and they had to carry on as usual. I think COVID showed us which jobs were genuinely essential to keep society afloat. Yep. And it wasn't the high-paying jobs. I too remember how peaceful it was. The air outside smelled different. The temporary change in pollution levels in highly populated cities was amazing. I remember the video coming in from parts of the world where wildlife was being brazenly open in populated areas due to the lack of people. A glimpse into what the world would return to if the human race simply died off. I'm not sure I'd be able to answer. The days were all so similar. My brain has condensed my memories down so that it feels like it was a week or two. I remember empty grocery shelves, my kids doing schoolwork on laptops in our living room, and my husband growing his hair out. I got gas for 25 cents a gallon at one point, but had nowhere to go. Our dog had cancer, so I was grateful that we were all home with him during his last months. Still had to work and deal with the poophead public. I worked in a nursing home, so I was at work every day. It was a difficult year on a social level, but on an environmental level it was a rare opportunity to observe what happened to the planet when humans stopped, and it was a better quality of environment. I remember seeing videos of animals just enjoying the absence of humans, just kicking it in public places you never really see them. they might have enjoyed more than us. We all claimed things would be different after we got out of it. We would value health, community and connection. Then the corporations got worse. I truly thought we would rethink our work culture, like how we made people come into work sick. Nope. It was quiet for the most part. With everyone being home, there was an uptick of people making banana bread, and bread yeast was hard to come by. There was definitely a sourdough starter trend. It was great, it got me into modding my consoles and pirating video games. I lived in Manhattan for most of it. Lockdown knocked me up. It's the reason I moved to the West Coast. Spend most days waiting for things to improve. But with every day bringing more bad news. Times Square devoid of human presence. Just billboards advertising to nobody. Barely anyone riding the subways. Trade unit going up in Central Park because the hospitals were overflowing. Sirens and silence. I don't talk about that. Asterisk SLOWLY lifts vape to LIPS asterisk. Asterisk asterisk cannabis vape. I almost feel guilty for how amazing lockdown was for us. My marriage was struggling because we had no time to work through issues and enjoy each other's company. We ended up doing Zoom counseling for a couple weeks, and it was exactly what we needed to rekindle everything. We ended up having a baby in 2021, and I'm pregnant again now, and there's just no way that would have happened without lockdown. We already had 2 kids and we were just super busy and overburdened and disconnected. COVID was a godsend for us. We didn't personally know anyone who got sick. Our kids thrived. We fixed up our home and our garden. I wish we could live it all over again just once more, but without the loss of lives and hardships of others. I smoked weed and worked from home the entire time. It was kinda nice. Having like a solid 15 friends all gaming on Discord and chilling like we did in high school was pretty amazing. I had an essential job, so I really didn't notice anything. Wearing a mask everywhere with everyone having different rules that made 0 sense sucked. I will never forget it. Being in healthcare, I was on the front lines every day, stressed, overworked, and hoping I didn't get COVID. I'm a retail pharmacist who saw it all play out in real time in a community of mixed socioeconomic backgrounds. It's really quite simple. One's not required to wear masks. Most of those who chose to continue to do so were perfectly healthy at the register, with the staff rarely hearing a single cough or any other symptom of even a minor viral illness. And unfortunately, once required not to wear masks, the sickest patients adamantly chose not to. I love being an American with the many freedoms we enjoy as much as anyone else. But the amount of times I could feel the momentum of someone's cough hit my own face while counseling them on their Paxlovid was astounding. I just know why we stayed a mess as long as we did. Lack of common sense and human decency. Let it be remembered, but not repeated. I have little faith in either of those, unfortunately. What lockdown? I was a retail worker in a large national chain that deals in auto parts and accessories. I was deemed essential to the economy. My store serviced the local USPS fleet, among others. There was never any lockdown in my perspective. There was only a piecemeal approach to how any given store managed their foot traffic with respect to 6-foot distancing. And I couldn't go get groceries at 2 AM if I couldn't sleep. Lockdown my ass. If the authoritarian power required to actually enforce a lockdown was ever present, it was never used to actually enforce a lockdown. I work in medical manufacturing, so we were determined to be essential employees. But that meant that my life barely changed. My hours stayed the same. I had worn a mask at work for years, clean room, and I already lived alone and wasn't super social. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.